to keep yourself away. Sound and color. This life ain't like it was. Sound and...
Hello and welcome back to Intermission. We are back and ready to go. And speaking of ready to go, I'm leaving a place right now. And I figured, you know what? Like those car review videos are kind of popular. And sure, you may have one of a guy who puts it like on his dashboard about he's like talking about why he loved the Mario movie so much. But for me, I'm like, you know what? Why don't you be with me? You're a passenger in my car while we go to the place I need to go. And I feel like, it's more interactive. You're with me, I'm with you, and we get to talk about some awesome movies. But enough of that intro. You already get what the point of the show is. So let's just get right into it, because I've seen some really epic films over the past few weeks. And I figured, you know what? I'm going to try to squeeze in the little time I have and try to get this out to you. And maybe I'll do some more, because summer's coming up and I think I can come back and do a few more of these. So let's get right on the gate. Up first is, it's not necessarily a positive nor a negative review. It's just going to be kind of a slight, mild talk about the newest epic Adam Sandler, Jennifer Aniston comedy, Murder Mystery 2, directed by Jeremy Gerlich. I believe that's how you say that name. This is the sequel to the first one, which I watched in preparation for this one, and I was really just baffled by how boring and bad and lame it was. The mystery was just so obvious as to who did it, and they didn't try doing any sort of twist or fun, oh no, it wasn't them, no, it was just outright this person, and then it was boring and bad. But this film, it's not even a murder mystery. It's just kind of more of a hostage film. A person's kidnapped, they gotta try to get the money, and the actual mystery around it is kind of interesting. They actually do play around with it. You actually don't know who it is, and there's an actual oh, okay, and when they reveal who did it, you're kind of okay, that was actually unexpected and kind of nice. Yeah, not only that, but the locations that they're at genuinely look kind of nice. It looks way better. They actually utilize locations in a more comedic and fun way, as opposed to the first film where they barely do anything with it. I mean, they try, but it's not nearly as good or effective as this film does it. And the humor works a lot better. There was actually a few funny jokes, and there was one with Adam Sandler where he has to keep moving stuff, and there was he was just kind of talking about if the murderer can kill him because he keeps moving stuff. And it was kind of funny. And you know what? Their chemistry isn't that bad in this film. It's a genuinely fine comedy duo that they have that's way better in this film than the first one. I would say when you really start to think about the plot and once the reveals happen, at first you're oh hey, I didn't expect it, but then you're wait, what about this? What about this connection? Did they really plan this in advance, even though it was totally just out of the blue? What about so when you really put the plot together, it just completely falls apart. But when you watch it just in the moment, you're having a lazy Sunday or something, it's not a bad movie to turn on. And luckily this film does not heavily rely on the first film as much, so you could just watch this one just on its own and you would have a good time. Do not watch that first movie. That first movie is not fun. It is boring and bad. This film is a little bit better. It's not time waster. It's not a lazy Adam Sandler comedy. It's just a fine little movie that, it was fine. It was a completely fine movie, and I would not mind watching it again in 8 years if I had to. So with that, I'm going to give Murder Mystery 2 a 5 out of 10, or a 2.5 out of 5? Yeah. It was just a fine little movie, and you know what? Some movies need to be fine and entertaining, and this was kind of that. Then up next, we're going to be talking about Air, the new Ben Affleck, Matt Damon joint, directed by Ben Affleck himself. I was moderately amused in seeing this film, with Ben Affleck stepping back behind the camera once again, his first one in about 6-7 years. He's a decent filmmaker, and the actual plot seemed moderately interesting, so I decided to give it a shot. And I enjoyed the film for the most part. I think its strengths lie with Matt Damon and the actual execution of its story, because it is very interesting, particularly the different jumps that they have to get through to make this deal to get Michael Jordan to sign in Nike, how they created the concepts of this, the different loopholes that I won't get into because it's a lot to explain. But it's very interesting, and it never felt like what's that term, inside baseball or baseball talk? It never gets bogged down by oh, what are these people talking about? None of this makes sense. No, everything made sense, and everything was oh, okay, I get this. Well, what about this? What about that? And you're oh, damn, what can they do about this? And it was actually really interesting, and I was pleasantly enjoying myself throughout the whole movie. Ben, as stated, Matt Damon is great. I really liked Chris Tucker. He was pretty funny and enjoyable in his scenes. He never felt like, oh, it's just Chris Tucker just joking around. No, it was just like he played this more fun character that is tied into this world that helps motivate and kind of go back and forth with Matt Damon in pretty good ways. Even though he only has literally one scene in the movie, the scene with Marlon Wayans, it was pretty great. Like his performance, the speech he gives, and the way he impacts the plot just from his one scene was great. I thought he was surprisingly fantastic in that scene. The actual, like, to be fair, I could have been spacing out, but like the actual reasoning for why he's in the film is just kind of like, oh, he just meets this guy all of a sudden. So that was kind of odd, but he was affected the film very well. I would say, like, the only negatives of this film are that, one, this film needed a little more Ben Affleck. I thought he was pretty enjoyable and good in the film, and he's fairly underutilized. And I guess that could make sense, you know, he's just like the CEO that doesn't interact much with people, but you could have done a lot more with that. And another thing was the soundtrack, how, like, poorly implemented it was. It's not that the songs are bad. The songs that they picked were really damn good. I like all the songs they played in the film. But this is like the most, like, you know, simpleton example, but it felt like Suicide Squad, like, just had no motivation for anything. There's a scene where Matt Damon's like driving to work and they play was a Sister Christian, but it's like not on his radio or something. It's like a scene of like, oh, blah blah blah, and then it plays, you know, motoring, blah, blah, and then it cuts. Like, there's no like him turning on radio or turning it off. It just plays in the film. And, like, you know, that's to be expected in a movie, but like it does that like 5 more times throughout the movie. It just plays random songs. They play Can't Fight This Feeling Anymore when Ben Affleck's just going for a jog. He's just jogging, and they play that, and it has nothing to tie with anything into the plot. And then not only that, but then they play Time After Time during a certain decision that needs to be made, and it's like like none of the songs fit. Like, sure, it fits the time period, but they don't fit the emotions and intended impacts of the scene. And I don't know if it was just my theater, but it sounded like the audio was peaking at various points where, like, the dialogue would sound all muffly because they're screaming so loud into the microphone. It's just like ass, which is shocking for a movie that supposedly cost around $90 million. Like, you'd think that Ben Affleck and all these other people would know, like, to not do that. But other than that, like, those are the only problems I had. And while they're big, like, I did not hate this film. I relatively enjoyed myself. I found the story to be interesting. The actual ways they were trying to uncover a lot of these details and go about it was interesting, and it kept me engaged from start to finish. And I was pretty happy with the experience overall. Ben Affleck continued to do a good job with the film. He just, you know, has to pick songs that are better utilized in the film. And to be fair, I don't know if it was the theater's fault, but like the sound, that's got to be fixed, like, without a doubt. But yeah, Ben Affleck's Air is going to be getting a really wonderful and nice 7 out of 10, 3.5 out of 5. Pretty damn enjoyable. You're going to learn a thing or two. It's a pretty good dad movie. If you got a dad, go take them to see it, because, you know, they're just going to be super interested in everything that's going on. Because it is very amusing. You learn a thing or two, and, you know, you kind of forget about it at the end, but you still enjoy the experience overall. It was not a forgettable, well, sure, maybe forgettable, but it was not like a boring or bad experience, and I might actually watch this movie again sometime in the future. And then we're also going to segue into one of the biggest surprises of the year, maybe of all time, and that is Dungeons & Dragons: Honor Among Thieves by John Francis Daly and Jonathan Goldstein. The plot's, I actually don't want to reveal too much of the actual plot because it was very mismarketed in the trailers. I'm like, oh, this is like super villain, oh, we got to stop the bad guy because they're doing an evil thing. But it really wasn't. It actually takes a different and moderately heartwarming approach to it that I was really enjoying myself. And that was a big thing. I really enjoyed myself watching this movie. This was a damn entertaining movie. The action is well shot. It looks really damn good. The choreography works really well. There's a couple of great fight sequences near the end, and there's a great oneer that's like obviously multiple different takes, but it's like super seamless, and it's very reminiscent of the director's previous film Game Night during the little like egg chase scene. And that's a great sequence together as well. And this film kind of continues that, with, even though it's only for one scene, it's still very damn good and really well utilized. And in addition to the action, the characters are all memorable and fun. They all have distinctions. I really liked Chris Pine and Michelle Rodriguez. I'm not as Michelle Rodriguez isn't that good of an actor, but in this she works totally well, super entertaining, and Chris Pine, he's always damn lovable and likable in his movies, and he continues that here, and they actually do give him like a lot of good character work, and you could say, oh, it's just father loves daughter, why should I care? But the film gives you reason to care, and there's a lot of good stuff that works out well, and you care about what's going on. I cared about all the characters and what was going to happen. The humor works really damn well, especially on a second viewing. I was picking up on a lot more different things, and I was able to just enjoy the ride. It's a damn enjoyable movie. In addition to that, the effects work is really damn fantastic. Like, this world is so like lifelike and seamless. The effects, there's maybe a few bad like implemented ones, but there was nothing that was like outright like terrible to look at it, or like everything was pretty damn seamless, especially the creature and costume design. It looked super damn realistic, and I was pleasantly surprised how much care and effort was put into Dungeons and Dragons Honor Among Thieves. I don't know if there's anything else I need to say. Maybe Hugh Grant was really damn enjoyable as the villain. The guy from Bridgerton was pretty damn entertaining as well. Like, it's just like, it's just super fun in the moment. I could really foresee myself watching this like again and again in the future. And if I saw this when I was like 10, 11 years old, I would probably love this movie like a lot more. That's not as necessarily an insult. I'm just saying, like, it appeals to everyone, It's a damn enjoyable movie, and I would highly recommend it. I was pleasantly surprised for a movie I had zero interest in, and was actually not, like, was kind of, not necessarily going and hating, but I just did not care for and did not have any expectations of it being good. This movie impressed me, and I was pleasantly surprised how much care, thought, and effort and fun was put into this movie. So yeah, Dungeons and Dragons Honor Among Thieves is going to get a really nice, wonderful, fantastic 7 out of 10 or a 3.5 out of 5. Might even go up to an 8 out of 10 or a 4 out of 5, because this is a damn good, entertaining movie that knows what it is, has fun with it, and it felt like people cared about making it, which is something that is rare in big budget movie making nowadays. But it's damn fantastic, and I would highly recommend it. And then lastly, we're going to be talking about the brand new epic movie that is the Super Mario Brothers movie from directors Aaron Horvath and Michael Jelinek by the hit animation studio Illumination. This review might be a little more out of, like it's going to be a little more disorganized and out of place, because I have so many different little things to talk about, but also nothing to talk about. And I mean that as a positive and a negative, because like if we're gonna simplify like the thoughts of like what I thought about this movie, I quite enjoyed it. I thought it was pretty good overall. Yes, the Illumination involvement made me like, nope, this film will not be good. The casting of Chris Pratt as Mario and all the other celebrities as the characters, I'm just like, why? No, you're just furthering proof that you can't do nothing with Mario in a movie form. And then the actual trailer came out, and I'm like, okay, visually they got it, but the voice is all f***ed up. I don't think they're going to be able to do it. But actually watching it in motion, like, they did a pretty damn good job, I thought. Like overall, it's a decent movie. To start off with the obvious, Chris Pratt as Mario. He's okay. He doesn't do a borderline, just like, caricature, or like just a lame accent. He has a Brooklyn-esque accent, but it never is like embarrassing or bad. It just feels like he's trying to replicate or trying to be Mario, but in a more Brooklyn landscape, and it works fairly well. I was never like, this is awful or this is bad, why is Chris Pratt doing this? It worked for the most part. Especially same with like Charlie Day as Luigi. He was great. He was probably my favorite actor in the whole movie. Anya Taylor-Joy was damn enjoyable as Peach, and a lot of the other actors did a damn good job. I would say that Cranky Kong was the worst one. The jokes and the voice by Fred Armisen was just awful. They were just not very funny, and it was crazy. For the actor who I was like, you know what, he might be pretty good in this movie, he was the worst one, which was surprising. And speaking of like jokes, it's very 50-50, because like some of them work, and I will admit, there was a few that actually had me like chuckling and kind of smiling. But like other ones just were like, really lame, most obvious lame joke imaginable. And then same with like the soundtrack choices, like they're playing Take On Me when they go to the Donkey Kong Kingdom. It's like, why? It doesn't fit at all. The Don't Sleep Till Brooklyn is just cringy and not well utilized, and it's just like they had no reason putting in 80s songs in this movie. It made no sense. Like really, like you could have plucked them out and the emotions would have been far better, and it wouldn't be like as cringy as this movie is. And then also I would say the pacing is pretty, not atrocious, it's just so fast paced that a lot of character interactions and beats just don't hit in the way that it thinks it does. A lot of them are just like, it just feels so fast. And it's like the biggest example is like when Donkey Kong and Mario are stuck in a place and you think, oh, there's gonna go on for like a few minutes, but then the whole conflict ends after like a minute, maybe even less. Maybe a minute or two. After that, like, everything goes back to normal. They're back to action and all that stuff. And it's just kind of like, what? Like, and that happens throughout the rest of the film, where a lot of things just feel way too fast. And it feels like, you know, people, like, they're trying to appeal to people with short attention spans because they can't, like, watch a film that's longer than, like, hour and 10, 15 minutes. And that's more of an insult to the studio, because it's like, why? You know, give a, like, if the movie had each scene be like a minute or two longer, it probably would have made for a little bit better of a viewing experience, because it wouldn't be as like quick pace or like just like, really, what, why? And I know you're going to be using this in like it's a Mario movie, why should you expect good pacing? It's like, a film is a story. You need to tell a story in a certain way. You can't just like tell it in like the quickest amount of time and expect people to just like it. Like, that's not how things work. And I know I sound I'm being negative, but I just need to get all that stuff out of the way, because those were like the things that were really holding it back. Bad song choices, a pretty bad pace overall, and bad jokes and one bad performance. They brought down a lot of things, but had those things been fixed, I think the movie would have been a lot better than how it actually is. Because I want to go into the positive now, because there was a lot of pretty good things that I relatively enjoyed about the movie. I would say the animation from being for Illumination is like pretty great here. It looks far better than anything they've ever done before. It's visually very stimulating. The actual attention to detail that from the games and are actually expanding it to fit a larger picture for the movie works well. And they actually did care about the animation and character design in this movie, unlike all the other Illumination films. As I said, the jokes are pretty good, and Chris Pratt as Mario is pretty okay overall. I did not hate him as the titular plumber. And everyone else was pretty good except Cranky Kong. And, God, the action. How can you forget about the action? The action in this film is pretty damn good. I would say that, like, you know, it's not the most amazing action in a movie ever, but it's really damn fun. The actual, like, flowing camera around the action, the way it kind of like looks almost 2D-esque in certain moments of like characters interacting like that, it worked pretty well, and I thought I was having a really damn good time. They really cared about the action, and a lot of it goes hard in certain ways, and the actual like climax of the film, like where the final fight takes place, was surprising. And I was actually like, hey, this is actually a cool, like, different take of where to set your final battle for Mario. This was actually really unique and good. The actual heart and story about, you know, not giving up and all that, it's fine. It's basic storytelling, but they do it in a way that works pretty well. And yeah, like the whole, like, you know, if you're like one of those people that's like, whoa, were you expecting a lot from a Mario movie? What, there's a movie for kids? That's very dismissive, and yeah, you should expect a kids movie to have something that appeals to adults and kids. And I feel like overall this film has a lot to it that's going to appeal to a kid and an adult, who, especially if you played Mario, you know, there's a lot to it that anyone could appreciate. The music by Brian Taylor was pretty good. The adaptations of the actual Mario score worked pretty well, and the actual, like, the other ones that aren't that are just basic, you know, action music, it worked pretty well for the story. The stakes make sense, it feels very faithful to the games, it works pretty well, it looks pretty great. It's just like, you know, it just has some things that are really holding it back from being great. But from being from a studio that does not make good movies, and being like a film that seemed kind of hard to make, because it's like, well, how do you do Mario in movie form? They did a damn good job, and I feel as though overall, you know what? It's a decent movie. I did not hate myself watching it, and during the second time, I enjoyed it a little bit more, I would say. It's not as good as everyone else is saying. People are just acting like this is the greatest movie of all time just because a website says it's not all that great, but who cares about that? If you like it, you like it. Well, that doesn't, who cares what a website has to say? But overall, I enjoyed it. It was pretty okay. I feel as though you could have done a lot more, and there were easy fixes you could have made to this film. But nothing was like, I never felt offensive. It was never too babyish for me. And it was like overall pretty okay, I thought. I'm sure there's a lot more other things I'm forgetting in my brain, but you know what? Just a quick thing to talk about, just because, you know, it's something to talk about. So yeah, a pleasant surprise. I didn't hate this film, and it was a lot better than I was expecting it to be. So that's a pretty good thing, and now it was worth talking about, because I'm like, you know, they couldn't make it, you know, I was like, they couldn't do it, but they did, and it appealed to, like, you know, a tiny bit of the movie critic in me and a little bit of the Mario fan, because I like the game. So seeing it in the screen was not only fun, but they did a damn good job with it. And if they do make a sequel, which they're definitely gonna do, you know, just make easy fixes, because you already got the fun, action, and all that. Just like fix the pace. No songs. Don't put any pop songs in the film, and then boom, you got yourself a pretty damn good. You got yourself a great movie right there. I don't know if I have much more else to say. It was okay. I would if you want to watch a fun animated movie, just watch it. It's fine, inoffensive. It will be fine. So yeah, I'm gonna give the Super Mario Bros. Movie a 6 out of 10 or a 3 out of 5. It might be a 7 in the future. It might go lower. I don't know. It was a fine film overall, and I think I've reiterated that point like several times. That hey, you know, who cares? You know, you've probably already seen the film, so I don't even know why I'm talking about it. So yeah, this was kind of interesting. Different take on this format. I don't think I'm gonna do another video in this way again. I don't even know if you're gonna be able to hear this when it's uploaded, but you know, it was something different. I think I might do a couple more. I'm interested in a lot of the new films coming out this summer, and I think it's worth making videos on. So yeah, stay on tune for that, and I will just go back into my cave and wait until the next upload. So thank you, and have a great rest of your day. Peace.